Now, I am very much honored to introduce our resource person, Dr. Kusum Sanju, Assistant Professor of English at Himachal Pradesh University, Regional Center, Dharamshala. She has completed her PhD from Himachal Pradesh University, Shimla. Her specialization is history and culture in diasporic writing. Her areas of interest are culture and nation. She is passionate about serving the society and keeps on participating in various social activities. She writes poetry and short stories both in Hindi and English. She is the resource person in International Faculty Development Program and a speaker in International Virtual Conference. Now the screen is over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so very much. I hope I am audible to everybody.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. So it will take a moment just to share my PPT, just a moment. Just a minute. Is it visible to everybody?
yes, madam. Yes.
Okay. So good afternoon, everybody here. So my heartfelt thanks, and I'm so much overwhelmed for this opportunity that I am here to present my paper on this esteemed platform. So thank you so very much to the respected organizers and all the intellectuals and scholars present here. My topic today is American Diasporic and Cultural Studies. Introduction. American literature is shaped by the history of the country. For almost a century and a half, America was merely a British colony. After a successful rebellion, it became United States, a nation. This history of American literature begins with the arrival of English-speaking people, and any literature, broadly speaking, any literature written and produced in America is considered American literature. Some very well-known Native American writers are Arthur Miller, Henry James, James Joyce, Virginia Woolf, Mark Twain, and many others. Now, American literature is further enriched by many diasporic writers from different parts of the world and from different origins. Many of them are not born in America but make it their abode for one reason or the other. Apart from indigenous writers of America, the people from Asia, Africa, Europe have significant contribution in American literature. So we can say that the range of American literature is far and wide. Now I'm defining diaspora here. The word diaspora is derived from the Greek word diaspero, which means to distribute. It is a compound of spero, that is to sow, and to scatter like seeds, and dia means from one end to the other. The Oxford English Dictionary, 1995 edition, second edition, discovers the etymology of the word diaspora back to its Greek roots and to its appearance in the Old Testament. Is mentioned that God's intentions were that the people of Israel should be dispersed across the world. Anyway, the relationship between literature and society is reciprocal and mutually dependent. Literature reflects history, society, and diaspora is such sociological concept. The experience of migration and living in diaspora have produced plethora of studies in the recent diasporic literature. Captures the experiences of the immigrants in an alien land and their tireless efforts to define their identity. It originally referred to the major historical migrations, such as the dispersal of Jews from Israel. Nowadays, term has a wider remit. It is commonly used to refer the ethnic and religious communities spread around the world who stay connected and retain their identity and origin. So when we talk about diaspora, it is very, very closely related to migration. And to understand the concept of diaspora, it is necessary to discuss the concept of migration. Since the origin of species, movement from one place to another has remained essential human nature. Migration is the movement of people from one place, origin, or country to another for various reasons. In today's world of globalization, human movement has become a dominant factor in the creation of diaspora communities. As we understood, the major cause of the creation of diaspora is migration. It means movement, sometimes voluntary and sometimes involuntary, that results into dislocation and displacement of people. As it is defined by Bill Ashcroft, diaspora is the voluntary or forcible movement of peoples from their homelands into new regions that results into the sense of dislocation and rootlessness. People nurture an attachment with their motherland irrespective of the reasons for which they have been away from it. The attachment to the motherland makes the process of adoption and adaptation more difficult. The sense of displacement prolongs to the first generation immigrants, in spite of the fact that these displacements are either for the betterment of personal or family life. It should also be noted that the concept of diaspora has made a substantial development in the recent time. The sense of displacement is replaced by being multicultural and multilingual. So, today's diaspora is more about relocation. So, let's have a look on culture and identity. Every community possesses certain essential and core values that determine its uniqueness and specificity. The set of these essential values called culture or cultural identity ascertain the existential essence of a particular community. For diaspora communities, culture becomes a basis to root their identity. Culture or cultural identity of an individual is a social construct. In the process of dislocation and relocation, the cultural identity of individual undergoes formation and reformation. So in the process of migration, culture becomes the very much identity to which people stick to. These dislocated people find solace and comfort by practicing their culture, creating their own little home in the state of homelessness. They maintain a different identity based on their culture. It becomes an integrating force for the diaspora communities in the receiving country. So, I'm just talking a little bit about Asian American diasporic literature. This is just an overview. The Asian American diaspora is dedicated to the writers of Asian ancestry, either born and brought up in America or settled here as Americans. These writers record the experiences of first and second generation of diasporic communities. The experiences of migration and living in diaspora have been explored by various diasporic writers like Hanif Qureshi, Jhumpa Lahiri, Bapsi Sidhwa, Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni, Bharti Mukherjee, and others in their works. Here I am taking Jhumpa Lahiri, major voice of diaspora. Jhumpa Lahiri is a significant second generation diasporic Indian American writer. Born in England to Indian Bengali parents and later raised in Rhode Island in the United States, having roots in three different countries, Lahiri has lived with the sense of diasporic disconnections. Jhumpa Lahiri's works are mainly based on the first and second generation diaspora. Her portrayal of multicultural societies reflects her truth as an outsider and yet an insider living in the United States. Jhumpa Lahiri came into acclaim with her debut collection, Interpreter of Maladies, which won the Pulitzer Prize in 2000 for fiction as it was one of her best. This book was then translated into 29 languages and have become a bestseller within the USA and other countries as well. Other notable works by Lahiri are The Namesake, which came in 2003, collection of short stories Unaccustomed Earth, 2008, and her most recent work is Lowland, 2013. Lahiri expressed her views in a press conference in Calcutta. No country is my motherland, she says. I always find myself in exile, whichever, whichever country I travel to. That is why I was tempted to write something about those living their lives in exile. So here I'm going to talk about her novel, The Namesake, and the novel spotlights the Ganguly family, Ashok and Ashima, and their struggles as immigrants in America. Story revolves around their son Gogol, whose very name questions his identity. He constantly has to struggle with his state of in-betweenness as he is torn between two cultures, Indian and American. Here, an interesting incident is when his identity is at question, and the reason is his name, Gogol. He is closely related to Indian culture and born and brought up in America, but has a Russian name. So, among all these identities, he is struggling with himself to define and locate who he is and where he is. So the novel explores the first and second generation diaspora by showing the nostalgia of Ashok and Ashima and identity crisis of Gogol and Sonia. As an Asian American diasporic writer, Lahiri writes about the displacement, cross-cultural dilemmas, and crisis of identity in the different land or the alien land, America. In her novel Namesake, she is portraying and capturing the dilemma of second generation diaspora who do not want to feel the guilt of the lost motherland and want to connect themselves to the host country. They want to feel at home in the new country. Gogol and Sonia, unlike their parents, Ashima and Ashok, do not feel at home in India, but in America. They are more Americans than their parents, yet not fully Americans. And here lies the identity crisis. They want an American way of free life, but on the other hand, they want a stable and comfortable family life like their parents. And as a result, they are torn between India and America. Stories, we come across an inner resolve simultaneously and determination. When we look at the character of Gogol, he is making every effort to be an American. And here Lahiri shows that how her characters are determined to overcome emotional imbalances and the indication that it is never too late to, to begin the life afresh. The next writer here I'm talking about is Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni and her dilemmas of immigration. Divakaruni's writings are autobiographical. She portrays a kind of cultural in-betweenness. All shades of identity crisis such as alienation, marginalization, despair, nostalgia, readjustment, assimilation, and adaptation. Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni is an Asian American writer with her ancestral roots in India. She is an award winning author and poet. She is a storyteller who writes about immigrant women. Her major theme centers on love, friendship, assimilation, the self identity of South Asian women. Karli is the author of 20 books, including Mistress of Spices, Sister of My Heart, Volunteer Girl, Before We Visit the Goddess, and Palace of Illusions. Her latest novels are The Forest of Enchantment, the Ramayana in the voice of Sita, and The Last Queen. On the one hand, her novels reflect dislocation and displacement, but at the same time, her writing offers us a chance for development, assimilation, adoption, and adaptation. So here I am taking an overview of Sister of My Heart, novel by Deva Karuni. So she tells the moving story of two cousins, Sudha and Anju Chatterjee. Their exceptional bond remains the core of the novel. As they both get married, Anju flies to America with her husband Sunil. Sudha remains in India only. But America has not satisfied her as she expected because Sunil has narrated so many fairy tales related to America, and her expectations are too high that when Anju reaches America, it is all against her expectations. The story narrates her efforts of assimilation, but her deep attachment with her people back home remains dominant. Rooted in the new land, she is always haunted by the past, but her efforts to create new identity are remarkable. Banerjee advocates that the immigrants do face challenges and difficulties, and there seem to be no solution for the problem faced by them. But that is the part of their experience. Rooted in the new land, they are always haunted by the past, but their efforts to create new identities are remarkable. So, with this note, where we are moving towards the diaspora, which is talking about displacement, but at the same time talking about relocation. So, here I want to conclude with a very poignant thought or the statement by another Asian American writer, Bharti Mukherjee, and she asserts we immigrants have fascinating tales to relate. Many of us have lived in newly independent or emerging countries, which are plagued with civil and religious conflicts. We have experienced rapid changes in the history of the nations in which we lived. When we uproot ourselves from those countries and come here, either by choice or out of necessity, we suddenly must absorb 200 years of American history and learn to adapt American society. Our lives are remarkable, often heroic. So the contemporary diaspora is is battling with displacement and disconnections, but they are making every effort to assimilate with new culture and plant their roots in the new soil, and they try to bloom. So that is all with my presentation. Thank you so very much for patient listening. Thank you so much. If anyone of you want to ask a question, kindly.